Greetings, ladies and gentlefish, and welcome to my review of this, the Sturmpanzer II, one of the Tier 4 artillery pieces for the Germans. So, what do you get with this thing, and, how does it fit into the whole tech tree and the game? Well, basically, at Tier 3, you had the Sturmpanzer I, also known as the Bison. At Tier 4, you can go to this, the Sturmpanzer II. You get 190 hit points. I mean, it's a tier 4 artillery piece. None of them get a lot of HP. 45 speed limit. Don't be fooled by that. You're never going to reach that unless possibly you're going downhill with a prevailing headwind and being towed by a European swallow. Your armor is garbage. I mean, it's an artillery piece. It's all about the gun. So rather than faffing around too much, let's get onto this gun. First thing you might know as soon as looking at it, it's a 15cm gun. That's a 150mm gun at Tier 4. This is the same gun you get on the Bison, the Sturmpanzer I Bison at Tier 3. 150mm? That's ridiculous! Yes. Yes, it is. Bearing in mind, my Tier 8 French artillery has a 155mm gun. 150mm is a huge caliber at Tier 4. So once you get past that and actually look at the gun, what do you notice? Well, 3.45 rate of fire. Okay, this is artillery, we don't expect amazing rates of fire, but that's not particularly good. Average penetration, 75, with high explosive ammunition. That's actually pretty respectable. 350 average damage is about par for the course for a Tier 4 artillery piece. If you decide to load premium ammunition, premium high explosive, you're looking at 75. Is it actually premium high explosive? It's another high explosive. Let me just check. No, sorry, it's just a better high explosive. I do apologise. In which case, I'm going to have to make a slight announcement about this in a second. Sorry, back to the gun. If you load the second high explosive shell, then basically you get greater alpha damage with your shots. And if you look at your premium ammunition, you get heat ammo, and you get 185 penetration, 300 alpha damage, but of course you're going to have to get a direct hit with 0.84. Yes, 0.84 accuracy / dispersion, however you want to say it, at 100 meters, and a 6.5 second aim time is going to be quite difficult. So this is kind of quite a derpy gun, if we're going to be honest. Fairly high alpha damage and penetration. I mean, it's a 150mm gun, it should be, but it doesn't necessarily hit all of the time. What's the splash radius like? That is indeed a fair question. If you look at the splash radius on these high explosive shells, it's 3.57 meters. If we compare that with the splash radius on, say, the M37, that is 1.91 meters. So it's, an extra half again, and then a bit more on top of this. So what you get with the Sturmpanzer II is a large explosion radius, a shell that does a lot of damage, but a fairly slow reload time, and it's kind of inaccurate. Okay, fair enough. That seems reasonable. But, here comes the but. There are two things to bear in mind when using this tank. Thing number one. It has a 180 horsepower engine, which, combine that with its 16 ton weight, means that you get about, just over 10 horsepower per ton. Okay? But when you use it, this thing feels a lot more sluggish than that. It is not a very fast machine, despite what the speed limit might tell you and all that jazz. This is not a very quick machine at all. Thing number two. The gun traverse. So, most artillery don't have a fully rotatable turret, or a turret at all. They have a fixed gun traverse, gun arc. And the German ones tend to have quite narrow gun arcs, and this is no exception. And if you find that frustrating, well, I wouldn't necessarily play the Germans. There's a couple of exceptions, like the GW Panther, for example. But this has a very, very narrow gun arc. And so, sorry. And so you end up having to move the hull an awful lot, and hence have to go through that awful 6.5 second aim time all over again. And bear in mind, the aim time, that 6.5 seconds, that's referring to you having just fired a shell, how long it takes the gun to re-aim. If you move the hull, it takes even longer. So this can be a really frustrating tank to use sometimes. Just quickly talk about crew skills and equipment. Equipment, well, consumables first. Repair kit, although I've never used it on this tank. Sorry, that's a first aid kit. Repair kit, yeah, might be useful. I use fuel to try and get a bit more speed out of this, and because, frankly, I'm really trying to grind through this as quickly as I possibly can. How about equipment? Well, if you were going to keep it, I mean, I don't give it anything special, because I'm not going to keep this, but if you were going to keep it, gun rammer, where's it gone? The enhanced gun laying drive, and then something else of your choice would be my advice. What about crew skills? Well, Sixth Sense on the commander, and, you know, camo on everyone else, or something like that, and you can't go too far wrong. Although, Brothers in Arms is also a good option to try and get that reload speed and aim time down as much as possible. I'm not going to have a look at the armour on this thing in Tank Inspector as I do on most tanks, because it's an artillery piece. The armour is garbage, trust me. The only points worth noting about the armour, so firstly, it's open-topped. High explosive shells are going to absolutely wreck it. Secondly, you're going to get penetrated by pretty much whatever shoots at you. However, if you're trying to kill one of these things, feel free to load high explosive. The only places you do not want to shoot with high explosive are here. So that's the sort of lower front plate. And then these two little sort of, I guess, toolboxes off to either side of the gun. Don't shoot the front of those. And try to avoid the tracks, I guess, because then the tracks will just eat the shot, it will explode, and you won't get a penetrating hit. Anywhere else is fair game. This 30mm of armour on the front, yeah, technically that's true, but it's only in those places. Everywhere else is much thinner. So aim somewhere else, load high explosive, and derp away to your heart's content, and you will kill this thing. What about the grind? Well, let's go back to the Bison at Tier 3. So, let's go back even further. So, at Tier 2, you have this thing. This is a comparatively new addition to the tech tree, and you have, this might be looking familiar by now, the same, no it's not, sorry, I lie. Ah, that's why I'm getting horribly confused. Okay, let's go back. You have a 105mm gun at Tier 2, which isn't too shabby. The gun is really derpy, it has a very narrow gun traverse, the tank itself is really, really sluggish, and I found this a very, very frustrating thing to use. You then have two ways you can go. You can go up via the Vesp at Tier 3, which gets a 105mm gun, or you can go to the Bison, which gets a bigger gun for a bigger boom. And you get this gun. Look familiar? This is the same 15cm gun you get on the Sturmpanzer II, and this is one of the things with this tank. So you play the Bison. You go, oh, it's got a big gun, it does a lot of damage. Fantastic. And you grind this out, and it doesn't take long to grind this out, it's only a Tier 3 machine, and then you get to the Sturmpanzer II, and you realise, oh, I'm using the same tired old gun. Oh, good lord. Oh, that's a little bit rubbish. I wish I weren't. But you are. Now, you do get a slightly enhanced rate of fire, and the accuracy becomes fractionally better, but not by very much. But it really doesn't feel like much of an upgrade over the Bison, to be honest. A tier lower, just you're meeting bigger targets, so that can be a bit disappointing. It's not a painful grind, or it's not an especially painful grind. I mean, if you don't like artillery, well, don't play it, but yeah, it's not a particularly painful grind, but you know, it just doesn't feel like much of an improvement over the Bison for the extra tier higher that you've got. And then you go to the grill, and stock gun on the grill is exactly the same gun as you've been using since Tier 3. Then you start getting upgrades to that gun. So the grind isn't too shabby, and this is only a tier 4 machine. It doesn't take too long to actually grind through. So having wittered on long enough, let's go to a replay, shall we? So here's the game in question. It's a tier 4 game, so we're top tier. I can't remember what this map's called. Whoops. Oh well. If you recognise it, you recognise it, and if you don't, you don't. You only get this map at mid-tiers now, I think tiers 4, 5 and 6. You don't see it at higher tiers, or indeed lower tiers anymore. So you may not have seen this map very much, but we're going to try and see what we can do. And if we're going to be honest, it's not the best artillery map. Nonetheless, let's just try and pull something out. So you can see how slow and ponderous this damn thing is. We're going to go over here to try and get ourselves into a position from which we can just consistently shell the bad guys. And I don't have a 100% crew in for this game, I should point out. Here we go. Here are some bushes to do the artillery thing. Slightly frustratingly, the range is going to be a bit of a nuisance on this thing. I hope I haven't been spotted there. Don't think I have. I haven't been shot at yet, so I'm going to assume I haven't been spotted. And there we go. Just zoom out a bit. That T-46 was right there. And, you know, maybe he's still there. Well, let's just take a punt. In for a penny, in for a pound. Guess he was still there. Alright. Well, let's try again, I guess. He should really move if he's got any common sense, but maybe he doesn't have any common sense. I don't know. Probably best to ignore the chat right now. We take another shot, which kills him. Gosh. I guess he decided not to move, or was possibly AFK or something. If he wasn't AFK, I've no idea why he didn't move. Oh well. And one thing you're going to see here, the really frustratingly narrow gun arc. Oh, it's annoying. And we aim, and aim, and aim, and aim. Fire. Oh, someone puts him on 9%. Oh, boo and indeed hiss. Well, that was constructive, wasn't it? No, well, never mind. Alright, DW2. I now have 2 kills, for what it's worth. And we're winning 7-5. DW2 is just sitting there for special DW2 related reasons, I'm sure. And there we go. A couple of us hit him, put him on low health. And the Panzersoufflé 4B, the other German tier 4 artillery piece, finishes him off. Trying to get some shots on this Matilda. A Matilda can be a very, very dangerous machine, especially in a tier 4 game. So we really want this guy taken out, but I don't really manage to do anything. We're still winning by 2 tanks at 8-6. So hopefully this is giving you a feel for some of the limitations of this thing. It's... yeah, the narrow gun traverse is really the main thing that can get on your nerves. Oh, Matilda moved. Damn it! And this is the thing with taking blind shots in an artillery piece. You then suddenly realise that, you know what, actually you could have had a better shot if you just waited. It looks like Matilda's using the howitzer. That's a terrible howitzer. Oh well. There we go. 97 whole damage. Puts him on 20% health. And he is dead. There's only 4 of them left. The M8 is around F1. 3 of them left as their Birch gun dies to a Panzer 1C. Their T28 is just there. I'm trying to get some shots in on him. Panzer 1C is successfully putting damage on him with his machine gun, which is hilarious. That gun's kind of lacking in penetration. And that was a hit, which is nice. But we shouldn't get too complacent. We're only winning by 2 tanks. And all of the tanks they have remaining are top tier, so tier 4, and they're not artillery.
Das war knapp.
76 there for the near miss, and the other artillery, German tier 4, finishes him off. We only actually have 2 tanks remaining One of those is the low health Panzer 1C, and the other one is a tank destroyer Su-85B. The rest of us are in artillery. Oh, there's the SU. So, no, that's a lie, sorry. There's the M8A1 I meant. I really wish our Su-85 could put some damage on him. M8 finishes off the Panzer 1C. Ooh, good. Oh god, okay. Our Su-85 put some damage in on their M8. Our artillery that finishes off the M8, and their Su-85 comes up behind and finishes off our Su-85. I just have a shot there for good measure. And suddenly, it's 3 artillery versus an Su-85B. Ooh, this is a funky situation to be in, it really is. So, okay then. These guys appear to be moving up, alright? I was actually going to move up and try and scout for our other artillery piece. But he appears to be moving, so I'm going to cover them. Now there is an argument for moving together, just as 3 artillery pieces to try and kill the guy, but I think it's worth... I mean, as it turns out, our Lorraine isn't going in the same direction as the Panzer anyway, so I'm just going to give them covering fire and see what they spot. And this was... I'm looking here because this was where this guy was last seen. Oh, there he is, there he is, there he is. Oh, he misses the Lorraine. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. He kills the Lorraine. Speculative shot time. Nowhere near. Right. There's 2 of us left. Their Su-85B's done well. He's currently on a Top Gun. Doesn't mean he'll necessarily get it, but he's currently got the 6 kills required for it. And our Panzer is moving up. Now, this is potentially a very sticky situation. I have 190 health. The Su-85B does an average of 160 damage. So, average numbers, I'm not a one-shot kill for him. There's the Su-85. I don't have a shot on him. So I'm moving up to try and TD mode this guy in conjunction with our Panzer. And I'm telling him to wait. I will come and help you. Come on. Come on. Now, attack. Attack. We'll both go. Come on, dude. Let's both go. Attack him from both sides. We can take him. The Lorraine says he's using gold ammo. Who cares? He can easily pen either one of us. It really doesn't matter if he's using premium ammunition. And there we go. The other artillery piece nails the Su-85B, puts him on 6 kills. And there we go. That was the game. So let's just have a quick flit back to the garage for some concluding remarks. So, before I get on to my conclusions on this thing, I just wanted to quickly say that the replay you just saw me use, I just noticed that I'd been a bit of an idiot in it. So, actually, I have been a bit of an idiot up till now. So, if any of you have seen my VKE 3601H review, you might have noticed that partway through I come to a revelation that I hadn't realised. In that case, it's that the turret armour differs slightly depending on what gun you equip. In this instance, my revelation is that you've got 3 different ammo types here. I thought, for some stupid reason, I just assumed this central high explosive shell was your premium high explosive that has a bigger explosion radius. And so I never bothered using it. But it's not. It's like the old, not the new, the old Su-26. Actually, your second high explosive shell costs more credits, but it just does more damage than your basic high explosive shell. And so feel free to use it. Your premium shell is actually this heat shell. So the replay I just showed you is actually using the weaker ammunition. So bear that in mind. When you actually play this thing, make sure you use the upgraded ammunition. There's no reason why not to, frankly. You do more damage, and then you will do more damage with each shot, and that's important because you have a slow reload, and so you want to squeeze as much damage out of each shot as you possibly can. Having said that, my concluding remarks, well, I've already said I'm not keeping this. But I've played all the tier 4 artillery and I'm not keeping any of them, so, you know, that doesn't set it apart. I don't like this tank, and I don't like it firstly because it just doesn't feel like much of an upgrade over the Bison, a tier lower, and that's because it's not much of an upgrade over the Bison, a tier lower. You feel kind of cheated. But secondly, I just think it's outclassed at tier 4, so I'm gonna compare it to the M37, just for a moment. So, don't pay too much attention to the stats overall. I'm just going to talk about how I found the two tanks to drive, because stats can sometimes be misleading. So, the M37 is faster. It has a better horsepower to ton ratio, it accelerates better, it has a better top speed, and it will actually go. Alright, maybe it won't reach quite that top speed, but it will reach a pretty respectable speed as it's moving around. So, this thing will relocate and run away from your opponents better than the Sturmpanzer. That's point the first. Point the second. The gun. Let's compare these two guns directly. Here we go. So, if you've got any common sense, you'll be using this middle high explosive shell, remember, on this gun, on the German gun. Okay, so the German gun is high caliber. It's a 150mm gun rather than a 105mm gun. Okay, fine. So it's not surprising that the American gun has a higher rate of fire, 4 rounds a minute rather than 3.45. Fine. Penetration, again, goes to the German gun, 75 compared to 53. Average damage now. If you haven't realised that you can have a better shell for your 15cm gun, as I did because I'm stupid, then the damage on this gun is actually lower than on the American gun, which is really quite irritating. But if you use the proper shell, then your damage is higher. And the heat characteristics. Now, the heat characteristics. If you're going to use heat ammo, then you find that with the German gun, you get much higher penetration, almost 200, but you actually get lower damage per shot. Okay. Dispersion at 100 meters, that's basically a measure of the accuracy. Well, the American gun is more accurate, and it's not that often that you can say an American gun is more accurate than a German gun. Aim time, the American gun gets a much, much better aim time. The American tank also gets a much wider gun traverse, so you don't have to keep moving the hull every time you want to reacquire a target. And what this means in practice is that with the German gun, you spend a frustrating amount of time moving the tank, aiming on your target moves, you move the tank again to re-aim, and it drives you absolutely stark raving mad. With the American tank, you don't have to do that anywhere near as much, and when you are aiming on your target, you aim in faster. Yes, you get more splash damage out of the German gun, but basically the German gun will do more damage if it hits, and, you know, near misses and whatnot. But you will get shots off more reliably with the American gun. You will do damage more reliably with the American gun. And I think the American gun is less frustrating. Final thing to note. Ammo. The German tank carries 30 rounds, which is an improvement over its predecessor that carried something stupid like 15. So it is entirely possible that I guess you could run out of ammunition in this thing, despite the longer reload. M37 carries 126 rounds. You are never going to run out of ammo in this thing. Just feel free to blat it out as much as you like. It's fine. The ammo is also considerably cheaper on the American tank. In my opinion, the Sturmpanzer 2 is just outclassed at tier 4 by the M37. I just don't see why you would play the Sturmpanzer. Obviously, if you're riding down the German artillery line, you're not going to be playing an M37, but the M37 just seems to be a better artillery piece at tier 4. So, yeah, I'm not keeping it. I'm not a massive fan of it. They are my thoughts, really. Anyway, I hope you guys found that vaguely interesting / informative, or maybe even enjoyable, I guess. If you did, please feel free to catch some of my other videos and or subscribe to my channel. And I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao ciao.